Okay, this looks totally crooked. Does this look straight? 3, 2, 1, let's go. What's up, you guys, and welcome to the Emotionally Relevant podcast. My name is Gabby, and I'm so excited that you are joining us today. I'm so excited to finally start this podcast. It's something that I wanted to do for a while and get it back into the YouTube vibes. I tried to be a YouTuber when, everybody wanted to be a YouTuber when I was like 15. And so all those videos are private now. Don't try to go look for them because you will not find them. We are here today. We are grown. We are, evolved, and we're in a new chapter. So I am so excited to start. I thought for my introductory episode that this would be a really awesome time to share my story of becoming a foster parent. I became a foster mom when I was 22 years old, and I'm 25 now, and Sunday will actually mark 3 years since the day that I was licensed with the state of Florida as a foster parent. So it's pretty crazy, and Monday will be 3 years since I met my little boy, who's not with me anymore, but he's with me in here, and we'll get into that. And I don't want this whole video to be about that, but maybe in future videos we'll talk a little bit more about that. I don't know if I'm gonna edit this or what. Have to have a good matcha. I am a matcha girly till the day I die. Peak matcha is the best. It is triple toxin tested, the cleanest matcha you can get out there. And I actually have a discount code. You can get 15% off when you subscribe. And they have more than just matcha too. They have all kinds of stuff. But this matcha is my favorite, and I've been using it for a year, and it's the best. Also, do you like my background? I actually have like an aesthetic room, and you can't, before when I had, you can see the corner of my little tapestry over there. I'll have to show you guys. I also have a code for her shop where I got this. Whenever I tell people that I'm a foster mom, I always get the question, well, one, why did you want to become a foster mom? And then 2, how do you become a foster mom? How do you become a foster parent? I get that a lot. Last year I posted a reel about me and my foster son, and it went viral, had almost 9 million views, and I got a lot of those questions. How do you become a foster parent? I've always wanted to do that, whatever. This is just like a side note. Another thing that people always tell me when I tell them that I am a foster parent, they always say, wow, I have always wanted to do that, or like, we want to do that someday, or that's something I want to do, in the future. And honestly, that's great. If you want to do that, that's amazing, because we need foster parents. But 2, I feel like you just say that because you want to be included. Like, you just want to feel like, I don't know if people hear that I'm a foster parent and they automatically think that I'm like better than them, or I'm doing some like great act of humanity by being a foster mom. So they want to feel like they match, like, I don't know, the morale. But it honestly really annoys me. Like, you probably have never thought about fostering in your life until I just said it. But if you have, then, that's great. And, these kids will be blessed for you to become a foster parent. So by all means, become a foster parent. And I think that's also a huge part of it, is people just don't know. Like, how do you become a foster parent? Like, can I become a foster parent? Like, I didn't know that you could foster while you're single. Like, I didn't know you could foster so young. I mean, yeah, when I tell people now that I'm a foster mom, they're like, oh my gosh. And then I say, yeah, I became a foster mom when I was 22. And they're like, oh my God, like, you can do that? Like, I I don't know, never imagined. Actually, in the state of Florida, you only have to be 21 to become a foster parent. And I still live with my parents. I was working a part-time job. I was not making a lot of money, and I was not living on my own. Now that really didn't stand in the way. There was at one point, so let's just get into the whole story. So I was 21 when I first inquired about becoming a foster parent. I learned that you could do it at 21, and I wanted to love kids. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to experience that, all throughout, high school and my early college years. I wasn't in college, but my college age years, I was babysitting, I was doing kids ministry, I was constantly, around little ones. And I don't know, one day I started just having this almost like yearning in my heart, like, I want to be a mom. I want to have kids. I want to do that. Which I don't think had really occurred to me. I didn't grow up. I wasn't one of those little girls that was like, oh, I just want to be a mommy one day. Wow, that's really close to my face. Whatever. I was never like that. I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to grow up and be Hannah Montana. I wanted to be a pop star. I wanted to be, a famous celebrity who made tons of money and was constantly, in front of a camera. That's what I wanted to be when I was a kid. And for most of my teenage years. But then suddenly I was just like, I just want to do this. And I had wanted, when I was in high school, I really wanted my parents to foster, but my two nephews grew up with me, so basically they're my brothers. We only have a 3-bedroom house. They shared a room. I have my room. My parents have their room, and my parents are older. So at that time when I was, in high school, my parents were already probably, my dad was probably in his 50s or whatever. My dad's in his 70s now, and my mom's in her 60s. So y'all can do the math on that. I don't want to. And it was just never something that we could do. All of a sudden I thought, why don't I do this myself? Why don't I be the foster parent? Why can't I do that? And so I looked into it and, I inquired. For me, I foster through a local agency that, I don't really know how you would describe it, but they're contracted with DCF. I don't really know. I know it's called a lot of things in other places, but here it's Department of Children and Families, and maybe you can foster directly through them. I don't know. I know of 2 organizations around here that people typically foster out of the people that I know. I knew the name of this one agency, so, I inquired with them. So when you foster, that kid has to have their own room. And there's different stipulations. So for different ages, have your own biological kids and they're 17 or younger, there's different stipulations on them sharing rooms. And it's obviously a 9-year-old girl can't share a room with a 17-year-old boy. It has to be, I think, genders have to be the same, but I don't really know what it is for sibling groups. If a brother and sister, came into foster care and you took both of them, if they could share a room. Honestly, I don't really know how that works because I've never taken more than one kid at a time, and I've never had to share a room because my nephews are way older than that. So I didn't have a room. I put that, on the back burner, and this was in beginning of COVID. This was when I turned 21, which was in March of 2020. It wasn't until 2021 came around, my one nephew had moved out. During COVID, we had my dad had built a room on our deck for my other nephew, so they would each have their own room. So one nephew was out there, my other nephew was, in their original room, and then he moved out. So I was great time to foster. Let's do it. I worked part-time at a preschool. I was not making any money. I was not really working. Their version of full-time was like 20 to 25 hours, and so they did give me full-time at that point, but I mean, I was working from like 12 to 5:30. Like, it was nothing. I didn't have savings. I didn't have any money. So for my agency, I had to do now I don't even remember how long it is. I think it's like a 8 to 10 week course. They call it Pride training, which I don't remember what Pride stands for, but it stands for something. It's specific to this agency. And so for me, I did the Zoom version, so I didn't have to go somewhere. I think it was every other Saturday, or was it every Saturday? It's 3 years ago. I don't remember. The other option was like twice a week at nights going somewhere. I don't know, but I started that in June, and so then I was done by August. And so in August, I should have been licensed. My info should have gone to DCF. They should have licensed me, and I should have, been welcoming a kid into my home. Another thing, as a part of the training, you have to go through a home inspection. Everyone in your home has to be background checked and fingerprinted, and you have to give them like all of your information. So like I had to give them all of my financial information. I had to give them all of my health information, like any health issues that I have, like medications that I take, and like if any of these things would like inhibit me from fostering. And I'm pretty sure my parents had to do that as well. I had to do another interview with a licensing specialist. My parents also had to do an interview. I think one was on the phone and one was in person when they did the final home inspection. There's different things like, all your medications have to be in a locked box. You have to have like good locks on all your doors. Whatever room that your kid is going to be in, they have to have, you have to have like a whole setup. You have to have the bed or the crib or whatever fits for your age range. Mine was 0 to 5. Though they still called me about, 15-year-olds all the time. So I had to have that, they have to have their own dresser to put clothes in, all of these things. And anything else that I did was pretty much extra. Like some friends of ours they have 3 daughters, and she just gave me bins and bins and bins of their clothes from baby, up. And I never had a girl. I briefly did have a little baby girl, but I don't think many of those things even fit her because she was so little. I never really got to use any of it, and I think I gave all of it away now. But, I had a bed, I had a crib, I bought toys, I bought, clothes. Obviously, I didn't know what age I was gonna get, what gender I was gonna get, and I just bought like some little things for various ages. And a lot of it I was able to use when my foster son came, so that was really sweet. First podcast problems, things happen. My camera fell down. It's okay. So all of that to say, I had all of that ready by August. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and I wasn't getting a call. I didn't know how long it would take them to license me, but it just was not happening. And I just waited and I waited and waited and waited. And then finally, one day in November, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to contact DCF directly. So I went on their website. I found somebody's email. I don't remember who I emailed or if I even knew that this was the right person to email, but I emailed them and explained, everything. And I think she responded to me like the next day and was like, oh my gosh, like, I'll look into that, whatever. Turns out that DCF had misplaced or overlooked my file, like completely. So she was like, we'll get this done, as soon as possible by, I don't know, tomorrow or the end of the day or something. This was a Monday night that I sent this email. On Wednesday, they were like, we should have this in by the end of the day. And they did. That was the 17th. I was licensed. I got, my certificate, and that was that. And then the next day, I was at work. I was waiting all day. I was like, they're going to call me. They're going to call me any minute now. I'm ready to take a kid. Like, I was so excited, which I feel like is a terrible thing to say. Like, oh, I'm excited for a kid to be taken from their home, to need a home so that I can take them, which is not, what I'm thinking in my mind, but I feel like that's what it sounds like. And then at 5 o'clock, I remember I got off work at 5:30. At 5 o'clock, I still have 2 kids in my classroom. I'm cleaning up, and my phone rings, and it's just some random number. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I answer, and I'm like, girls, come on, like, go into the next room. I was in the 3-year-old class. There was 3A and 3B. So I was like, come on, we gotta go in this class. You gotta go in here so I can take this phone call. And so I kind of shoved them in there, and I was like, they're calling me. And so I answer, and it's this agency, and it's a caseworker, and he's asking. So I answer, and the first thing he said was, can you take a sibling group of 5? I was like, what? He explained their history, their ages, genders. I don't even remember what they were. Because he was like, I got 2 cases that I'm working on, and the first is a sibling group of 5. And I was like, what about the single child? He said he's a 1-year-old little boy. It's the first time he's being removed. There had been a case plan in place. DCF had been involved already, and it just kind of, hit the point where it's like, all right, we got to take him. Turns out he was 18 months, which I don't remember. Maybe because I asked, is this 12 months or what? And because you could say 1, it could be a wide age range. It could be 12 months. It could be, 23 months. You don't know. So he was 18 months, and I think he was actually really 17 months, but they told me he was 18 months. And I remember I didn't know anything. I didn't know his name. I knew that he was coming from a different county. All I knew was this little boy needed a place to go. And I remember they said, they were like, we're picking him up from daycare. His dad doesn't even know that we're picking him up. And I was like, oh my God, he's just gonna not know. He's not gonna, get to say bye or anything. And so I said yes, and they were saying the person that was going to bring him, I don't know, had to go pick up another kid or something or whatever. And, he already lived an hour away, so it was going to be a while. And I rushed home. I remember I was on this high. I was like, oh my God, it's happening. And I had texted my mom, and I was like, I can't talk, but there's a kid coming to our house tonight. And I ran home, and I got everything ready, and I tried to pull out all the things that I thought were around his age. I went to Publix. I bought all kinds of snacks that I thought, a 1-year-old would eat. I got Cheerios and blueberries and bananas and puffs and all kinds of things. I got 2 different kinds of sippy cups because I didn't know which kind of sippy cup that he was gonna like. And I remember my aunt, months before this, had sent me $100 bill. as I was becoming a foster parent. And, I had had it in my wallet for months and months and months, and I wasn't going to use it unless it was related to fostering. And that was what I used to buy all of those things on my very first night. And I went home and I waited and I waited and I waited, and 10:30 on a Thursday night, I see those headlights come around the corner, and I go outside to this van, and they open the door, and the most perfect little boy was sitting there. He's blonde hair, blue-eyed. He was wearing Sesame Street pajamas. He was smiling. He was laughing. He had this little tractor that made noise. He had a bottle. And all he had was a little backpack that had a pair of socks, a couple diapers, and maybe like a pair of pants or something that was from the DCF office or like the agency office. This was not his. I later thought, or maybe it was. Maybe it was from daycare. I don't really know, but that's all he came with. So I had nothing. Remember, I didn't sleep at all that night. He slept like a rock. Went to bed. It was probably 11 or 11:30 when we got settled. I rocked him to sleep. I put him in his crib, and he didn't make a noise all night. I was up before him, and I think that's the only time that's ever happened since then. I think that's one of the only times he's ever slept through the night being here. So it was a journey, for sure. He fooled me on the first night. He slept great. Totally fooled me. But he was my introduction to being a foster mom and being a mom and experiencing that. And like, I remember that night I was texting a friend who's a foster and adoptive mom, and she works for one of the local foster agencies that, or not agencies, but like organizations that supports foster families and adoptive families. And I texted her a picture, and she was like, "You're a mama!" Like, oh my gosh. And I was like, he could leave tomorrow. Because when a kid comes into your home, the next morning they have to do a court hearing, basically assessing the removal. And I don't remember exactly what it's called, but that's when the judge decides, like, all right, we're going to put this kid, into foster care. We're going to give you a case plan. You're going to have 12 months to complete this, and determines whether or not you can get your kid back, or the problem really isn't that serious and you can have your kid back, basically. So I was like, he might leave tomorrow. I don't know. And then he didn't. And I didn't go to court because I was an hour away. So I just, waited. We just hung out. We went on a walk. And then after that, we went to a local coffee shop that I go to every single day. And this would later become our routine of going to this little coffee shop every single day. And will forever be so special to me. And we went, and of course everyone's like, "Oh my God, who is this?" I'm like, "It's my foster son." And that was the beginning of the journey. And it's an insane journey, and I could talk more specifically about, my journey with this little boy. And, he was with me, and then he left, and then he came back, and we had maintained a good relationship with his dad and have gotten to see him, since then. But then at the beginning of this year, something changed, and now we haven't seen him. And it's really hard. I don't want this whole podcast to be about that, but I could talk about it one day if you guys would like to hear it. That is how basically I became a foster parent. And so then the next thing people always ask me is, why would you want to do that? What made you do that? I have always had a big heart. And I've always had a heart for, you can see my Christmas jammies. Probably not. I've always had a heart for kids. I have always been a big mental health advocate, sharing my own personal journey with mental health and heart has just always been for big causes. I'm very pro-life, and I've always been that way. Given my personal testimony, which I can go into a little bit more later, if my mom had listened to what doctors had told her when I was, in the womb, I wouldn't be here today. But those doctors were all wrong. So I'm here. So it's great. And so I've always had a big heart and passion for that. Cliche answer is really to be like, oh, God told me to, or whatever. But God just laid it on my heart. He laid out the opportunities. Years before this, I was maybe 19 or 20, I worked childcare for an event that was called Empowered to Connect. It was a conference, like a teaching that focuses on TBRI, which is trauma-based relational intervention or trust-based relational intervention. I don't really know. Basically just a very trauma-informed way of caring for kids, specifically that, are coming out of the system. And I worked childcare for that, and half of those kids were being fostered by the parents that were attending this conference. And I remember we had like a morning, powwow with all the kids, volunteers, and the lady said, she was like, some of these kids came into care yesterday, and now they're here at this conference. So it was a lot. It was a lot of, you put so much trauma from tiny humans like in one room, and it's hard. It was an exhausting couple days, but I remember when I would take little breaks or when I would eat lunch while they were, talking, and I could hear everything they were talking about, and I was looking at the tables, and I was just like, man, like, this is my heart. Like, I want to be these parents. I want to be attending this. I want to be a part of this. And God just really, He opened the doors. He opened my heart. Now I'm 25 and I've done this for 3 years, and I've experienced so much trauma. I've experienced so much grief and so much anger. I never thought that doing what God called me to do would make me so angry at Him. And drastically shift the trajectory of my faith and everything that I know about faith and everything that I know about God and who He is in my life and who He is in the life of vulnerable children. I had never experienced anger with God. I had never doubted God. I mean, I've been through a lot, which I can talk about on another day. Mental health, chronic illness, all of the things. And in all of those things, even when I was, on the edge of my life and wishing that I didn't, wake up that morning, I never doubted that God was good. I never doubted that He would not come through for me. I don't even know how to say this, but so then when I was put in the position of advocating for a child, a vulnerable child that has no voice and that cannot speak for themselves and what is best for them, and realizing that only goes so far. Because what they don't tell you when you become a foster parent is they don't really care what you have to say. They don't care about your opinion. They don't care about what you think is best, what you recommend for a child that you spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with, that they've maybe never even met. Most of the people on my foster son's case had never once met him because we were in a different county and they didn't drive out here to see him. We were making plans and talking about the best interests of this kid that they don't even know what he looks like. what I had to say was discounted. And that's another thing, my anger for the system. We can talk about, and you can hear it all day that the system is broken, but until you are in the middle of the system and you are on the side of the fence that really truly has no say, you don't understand. Really, when I think of just driving force in my heart and in the back of my mind was this one verse, which I actually have tattooed now. Wrong arm. I got this tattoo before I became a foster parent. It's Proverbs 31, 8 through 9. It's got some little flowers on it. And I'm going to read it to you guys because this is like my life verse. Proverbs 31, 8 through 9. And no, it is not about the Proverbs 31 woman, in case you were wondering. It says, "Speak up for those who have no voice, for the justice of all who are oppressed or dispossessed. Speak up, judge righteously, and defend the cause of the oppressed and needy." So this is the heart of what got me into foster care, and this is the heart of everything that I do and everything that I am. And this journey is truly what led me into social work, because now I'm in school for social work and I'm getting my bachelor's and I'm pretty close to getting through it. And I'm actually possibly going to start an internship with the Child Advocacy Center, which I'm so excited about, because that puts me on the other side of the fence. And that was a lot of my heart, was I want to be on the side of the fence where I have a voice that matters, where I am a voice for these kids and it matters and it means something. And people tell me all the time when I, tell them about being a foster parent, it's, "Oh, I could never do that. I would get too attached." Well, then you'd be a great foster parent, because getting too attached is what every child deserves in this world. Every single little person that is born into this world deserves somebody who is too attached. And the amount of tears that I have cried saying goodbye to a child over and over again, and seeing the brokenness that they sometimes go back to and not being able to do anything about it. I just think that every single child deserves somebody like that will cry like this, that will grieve like this for them when they are gone, because it means that they mattered. And truly, the second a kid comes into my home, they are my kid. They are not a foster kid. They are, if I had any biological kids, they would be treated exactly the same. They just fit into our family. They're a part of our family. Spoil them. I think I spend all my money on kids. When I have kids, all my money goes to them. I don't buy new clothes. I don't buy new shoes, but they have a new outfit every day of the week because I love it. I love buying kids' clothes. Don't know what it is, but I just love kids' clothes. It's so fun for me. We go out, get ice cream every day, which is probably not the best practice, but we did for the most part. We have fun and we hang out with friends and we do all of the things. A kid's never gonna come into my home and feel like, oh, I'm out of place or they view me differently, because I won't, ever. And so I think, given this heart that God has given me for justice and for the vulnerable and for the voiceless, it is really, really hard for me when I feel like that voice is not heard. And I felt that so much. And I still feel that way. And if this little boy were to come back into my life in the realm of foster care, if something were to ever happen, I don't think anybody would listen to me. They never have. It wasn't until he came back last year that I really laid into these people. I called them out. I was like, you're not doing your job. Like, do you need me to remind you of what your job is? Because you're not doing it. And I'm going to call you out on it. And I did. And they didn't like that. So they didn't like me. But that's fine. I don't do this to make friends. I do this to love children well. Just when it comes to learning about faith and learning about how to trust God. I've never had to trust God in the same way that I've had to trust God as a foster parent. Ever. I've never felt so desperate for God to come through. I've never felt so helpless in a situation. I am a person that I need control because I think that I can control everything better than God can, of course. I know the best ways to do it, and I give him my ideas all the time, but he never takes them. Because his best is best, and I don't always even see that play out. In the church world, they talk a lot about peace. I don't have peace. When my foster son left for 10 months and we were still getting to visit and still getting to see him, I didn't have peace. I just knew in my heart, and I was right. He came back. And I wrestle with God. I doubt him all the time, and I'm angry at him a lot. And I think that's starting to soften as the weeks and months go by. I'm starting to feel less angry. I'm more so angry at people. But then it's hard because you're like, wow, I'm so angry at these people. God, why are you letting these people do this? Like, I'm angry at you because I'm angry at these people because this is still happening. Like, why aren't you doing something about it? I feel like in your faith, you have to get to that point at some point to truly see why you believe what you believe, and if you really believe what you say you believe. I've been in church my whole life. I've been a Christian my whole life. I was 9 years old when, I got baptized. And I've gone through a lot of things that have, deepened my faith in the Lord, where I've just sought the Lord day in and day out when things just felt hopeless in my life for myself. But then I was thrown into this new world, and it was this whole other realm of being a follower of Christ that I hadn't ever experienced. And it's the hardest and most painful thing I've ever done in my entire life, but it's the best thing I've done in my entire life. And one day when I have space again, my nephew moved back in, so I don't have space right now to foster. And I'm taking a break working to do school so that I can become a social worker. But truly, I have found my life in laying it down. I have found fulfillment in giving my heart to all of these things that I know will break it. But I know that it's being broken because I'm loving where God has called me to love. It's taught me so much about how God sees these children and how God sees me as a father. I've learned how to love like a mother. I've never experienced a love like that. I've never, I would do anything for this little boy. If I got a phone call right now, I'd be in my car. I would go. No questions asked. I will be there for him. Like, you just don't find that love accidentally. The way that God has even just connected our story in that way just blows my mind and shows me the faithfulness of God and how he does things so purposefully. And I'm even in this season right now where I'm just like, I just got to get to that day where I see why he's doing all that he is doing, or why he is seemingly not doing all of what I feel like he's not doing. Still hold fast to that faith, even though some days it's hard and I feel like I say, you know, all the attributes about God that I know to other people, but I feel like I'm just saying it sometimes, and I feel like I'm not actually believing that all the time. But on this journey, I have just seen the faithfulness of God. I've seen the goodness of God. I have seen the power of God working on behalf of someone else. There's nothing that I've ever experienced in my life like being a foster parent. And like being a foster parent through the perspective of the Lord brought me here, and the Lord has sustained me here, and I will keep going, and I will keep loving kids, and I will keep taking in kids. That's not gonna change. I knew that I was strong, and I knew that I had a fight in me for things that I care about, but I've never seen it so evidently until I was put in these arenas where I am the smallest person in the room, and suddenly I'm talking to caseworkers and writing letters to judges, and I'm talking to attorneys, and I'm testifying in court, you know, for a kid who's not mine that I just met a couple months ago. It's insane. It's insane. And I feel like I've gone through like every scenario of being a foster parent possible in 3 years. You know, I've had a kid leave, I've had a kid come back, I've had a kid reunify, I've had to disrupt placement. I mean, I've had DCF called on me. I had somebody who I was really close to, a really close friend of mine, falsely report me to DCF, which maybe one day I'll talk about that and what it feels like to be investigated by DCF, because I was. A story for another day. One, because I feel like I've just talked, and two, because apparently my camera is dead. So, I don't know. I just feel like I have so many things on my heart. And I have so many things to say about the things on my heart. And you can't put that in an Instagram post, and you can't put that in a reel. Which is why I want to create this space to have meaningful conversations. And not just talk about how, you know, my favorite lip gloss or what I bought at Target is I love that, but it's very inauthentic to who I am and what I care about in life. This was so much like rambling, I feel like. I really like doing off the cuff, but I try to like mentally plan out bullet points. I feel like I stuck to them. I just, rambled on and on about them. If you have any more questions about fostering or being a foster parent, or how you can, be involved, even in supporting foster families or supporting bio families or whatever, I have lots of things to say about all of that. I actually really like this angle even better. I think it's because it's not zoomed in. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. So But I really appreciate you joining, and if you've listened this far to the Emotionally Relevant podcast, if you'd like to see more, subscribe, follow, like, whatever platform you're on, whatever you got to do. And I will see you next time.